Okay, well, we got some Mini Z racing on Friday, so it's time to get this thing tuned in, guys. If you guys didn't see our last video on these sweet carrying cases that we found at Walmart, check that video out. But we're going to get a couple pieces out here and do a little tuning and show you guys what we got going on. What's going on, guys? Walter with the RC Addiction Vlog. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the RC Vlog. Today we are talking about the Mini Zs again. We got Mini Z racing on Fridays now. Every Friday we are hitting the track with our Mini Z, and to do so, we always got to keep this thing tuned up and tuned in, ready to go. And so today I wanted to talk about or highlight a little tech tip that I do when I'm racing my Mini Z and things that I pay attention to help my car go faster. So let's dive into it. So when we talk about Mini Z racing, a lot of the times these cars, because they are box stock class, there are certain things, speed secrets, if you will, that you can find and tune your car to maybe find that competitive edge against your, the guy next to you. One of the things that we deal with specifically with the layout that we have and the size of the layout is gearing changes. Now, this won't pertain to everybody depending on the gear, the size of layout that you're running on. But because our layout is so big, we end up having to make decisions on gearing that you normally may or may not have to depending on your track size. One of the things that I will pay attention to when I'm racing on-road stuff, especially Mini Zs right now, is my gearing. And I do that by paying attention to three different things on the track. One would be my straightaway speed. My other is my cornering speed. And three is my infield speed. And when I mean infield speed, I would basically describe that as any other straightaway other than the long straight that's in your layout, assuming that you have both, one and the other. It just kind of depends, like I said, depending on the size of the layout. But because ours is so big, we kind of have three different sections of the track that you can judge your car based on how fast and what your throttle and trigger finger are doing. And so one of the things that I do is I will pay attention to the infield. And when I say infield, I just basically mean any of your interior turns and straightaways, whether that be small straights or even a little bit longer, that 30, 40 feet plus, just kind of depends. We're running a pretty big layout. So we have, our straightaway is almost 60 feet long, and which feels like forever in a Mini Z. So, and one of the things, like I said, that I will pay attention to is how on and off the gas I am going through the infield with the remote or with my trigger finger. And I will try to pay attention to exactly what my car is doing. If I feel like I'm having to get off the gas too early to make the corner to where the car won't chirp around the corner, or if I'm able to stay in the throttle as I'm making the corner, whether it's a 180 or a 90-degree turn. And I will judge what's going on in the car by that, like based on how I'm driving it and how I feel like I need to make a fast lap. Last week, if you guys saw our racing video, we had mentioned that we had changed to the 8-tooth pinion from the 9-tooth pinion. Everybody had said because our layout was so big that the 9-tooth pinion is going to be where it's at. And I almost disagreed with them last week after putting the 8-tooth pinion on. And the reason I say that is because with the 9-tooth pinion on our infield 180-degree and 90-degree corners, I felt like I was having to get off the gas a little early just to make the corner. And like when I say that, I'm talking just a split second of letting off the gas, maybe just from going from like 75% to 50% throttle. And in doing so, I was giving up a lot of speed through the corner rather than being able to just hold the throttle at either 100% or 75%. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to change those pinions. And the reason we're going to do that is because some guys don't know that there's a pretty easy way to do this. And so I'm just going to show you. We're going to go ahead and take this body off and get in there and see. Oh, come on. There we go. See what changing one of these is like. So what I'm going to do, this is my little baggie that I have for the, let me see, was that focusing on that? Yeah, that's my baggie for the 9-tooth pinion. Now, the couple things that you'll need to grab out of your box that come, and these come with it, is these two motor plates and then the pinion of your choice. Now, each one of these motor plates is marked with the tooth count that it goes to. Okay, I don't know, I'll try and show you here, see if the camera can zoom in on it. But in the very corner down here of the motor plate, It is marked 9T, obviously standing for 9-tooth, okay? So the first thing I will do is, let's see here, let's grab our Phillips. I take the rear shock bolt or screw. It is a Phillips screw, I guess, so not a bolt. And I will loosen that up to get the shock out of the way. Okay, and I just kind of fold it over to the side. The screw stays in it. Now on the back of the Mini Z here, your motor capsule, or your rear pod, if you will, of the car has this little tab. It's like a little release tab, and you pull up on that to get it released, and the whole top case of the pod, the rear pod, will come and pop up. As you can see, I'm trying to be gentle. These cars are not as, they're fragile, but they're pretty durable, believe it or not. They're not the most like fragile things on the planet for being all plastic. So as you peel that back, oh, come on, I'm fighting it now. You kind of work it off. You have to work it. There's a little grabber on the backside. So it grabs right here on the backside of the pod. Okay, the whole case does. And so you just need to get it around that pod. And a lot of times it just takes a little bit of pushing on the pod to get it to separate. And obviously then without unsoldering or doing any magic to your motor is accessible and ready to go. So pretty simple to get it in there. Now what we do is we pull the motor out, and sometimes you just got to wiggle it out. They're not always the easiest to get right out, but they don't take a ton of force. Okay. So as you can see, the motor slid right out with those plates on it. Now what you can tell is there is two different versions of these motor plates, and I'll set them out here so that you can see. So you just want to make sure that when you're taking the pinion off that you don't damage it. So if you are going to use a set of pliers, don't damage it when you're taking it off. But we would pull that pinion off, pull the motor plates off both ends, switch them out for the, whatever's marked for the pinion of your choice, and then we would slap it back in there. Now, what you want to do is make sure that the motor plates that go on each end do slide right back into the groove, okay? And there is a little bit of a groove that they slide into to create your gear mesh. And you want to make sure that when you put that back in there that gets set correctly, because then the gear mesh won't be right. And you want to make sure, just like that it sits down in there nice and flat and goes back. And then you want to obviously rotate it, check your gear mesh, make sure it's sitting in there properly. And then what we would do is fold our case back over, click it back over that lip. See if I can do this and do it all. There we go. So you get it back over the lip, and then you would push down and snap that tray back into place on top of the pod. Then what we would do is put our rear shock bolt or screw. Sorry, I keep saying bolt. We would put our rear shock screw back in. And sometimes for this, you also got to pull back on the pod just based on the way that the chassis is. There is a little bit of distance, and once you undo the shock, it kind of opens up. So you got to recompress it to get it back in that hole. You would tighten that down. And just like that, we've successfully changed the pinion, okay? Now, what I've done is separate each one of these pinions that came with the car and the motor plate in their separate bags so that I don't have to try and search for it if I am changing it on race day, and I go from there. Makes it a little bit easier. You can do that with yours. I know that for our layouts, I'm only going to use the 8 and the 9 tooth, so the rest of mine are in this bag of spare parts that comes with the car, and I keep that with my tires and everything. So, guys, that's how you guys change a pinion on the Mini Zs. I know most of you guys may or may not have known that. We've had some questions. We've had, people asking why you would change that and why they're, what's the benefit of it. So, as you guys heard in the beginning of the video, it's just about focusing on what your car is doing in certain areas of the track. So, and once you can learn how to identify that, you can literally become a faster racer just by doing that. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you smash that like button down below. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And as always, guys, we will see you next time.